I must admit it was at short notice, but I said to myself, this is an opportunity to seize. And, Maya Angelou once said, when she shows up, she knows that she's not showing up alone. And I once received an award in my country when I published my first memoir title. It was the Voice of the Voiceless Award for using my story to inspire and motivate so many women and all of that. So I always do that. And so whenever I have an opportunity, even if I really don't feel ready, I just kind of take a deep breath and then go. So I think that's the whole point. When you are in despair, you think about where you're coming from, you think about where you're going to, and then you take that deep breath, which is full of hope, and then you move on. So that is actually the title of my sharing, From Despair to Hope, how I became a lawyer and psychotherapist for abused women and children in Cameroon. So yes, mental health matters. I want to say that before I got married, I was already having some issues, and I didn't just know what. But in Africa, I don't know about the rest of the world, but when we get to a certain age, we want to get married. It's just like natural that a young girl should get married, should settle down, should, live happily ever after with her spouse. So I structured my presentation to look at marriage as my refuge, because that is really what I hope for. I've moved on to the next slide. I wasn't so sure I could share my screen myself. That's why I asked for help. I moved on to the next one. Okay, marriage, my refuge, or so I hope. Despair sets in. Living to live. This is something we usually don't tell victims, like, oh, you should live, but I did live to live. Doing all it takes. The phonics always rises. That is what the phonics does. Like the eagle, right? Even if the wings are broken, they will still soar. Okay, hope for the abused and battered and poor, and the way forward. We can all do something. When you know better, you do better. I've listened with rapt attention, especially to the first speaker, Dr. Fatima from WHO. I saw the statistics and I saw how Africa is so down there, like we don't even have anything available. I mean, with regards to mental health, not to talk about gender streaming, whatever little services we have available. But I think that there is hope. Anyway, back to my story. I'm on slide 4. Marriage, my refuge, or so I thought. So my rocky and traumatic childhood, when you have parents who have also had a difficult marriage, and you're a very sensitive child like I am and I was, there's a lot of trauma you cannot process, and it affects you mentally. And I think I made some poor choices also from that point of view, very vulnerable. Okay, so the norms and cultures are like, no, you have to settle down. I think I had my first son without getting married. Back then it was such a taboo, so I was very uncomfortable. I was 24. So I met somebody in December 2004, and I just told him I just want to get married, and people sometimes laugh, but that's the truth. That's my truth. And so in March 2005, we got married, right? So don't ask me how ready I was or how ready he was, but I was in a very fragile place. And so the minute what we will call red flag set in, I also started to withdraw. And so I think that he also lashed out the way he could. I really don't know so much about his own background, but I couldn't handle the stress. And so it was really something of arrows from all angles. And I really felt defeated. So despair sets in. Despair sets in. I was hopeless. I didn't feel loved. I felt dejected. I felt abused. Yeah. And before we think that violence, domestic violence, is only when you are slapped and kicked and stuff, I want to say that there's violence, several kinds of violence, like uh, it comes from all angles. There's emotional violence, there's the spiritual violence, there's the financial violence, there's the sexual violence, and I did experience all of those types of violence. So I tried to cry out for help, but mine is not a culture where you should say this kind of things. We have a culture of silence. Don't say it, let nobody hear. Can you imagine the disgrace you'll be bringing to the family, especially coming from a family which has what we will call, or some people will call, generational trauma. Of course, like my grandma, my mom, and myself now, we're like, what's wrong with women in your family? So I wasn't talking to anybody. The only person I ever really talked to briefly was my own mom, but I wasn't also happy at the time with the solution she offered. So I took things into my hands. I also tried to be abusive, like we women, we have to be honest. Sometimes the way we use our mouth can earn us some good, more slaps and stuff like that. It doesn't really help out in any way. I tried to even use sex as a weapon. Don't touch me. I moved out of the room. I'm a very authentic person. I share my story without any holding back. So that is it. I tried to find solace elsewhere. Yes, I did step out of my marriage. I had a few relationships. Well, I can say I was never caught, but that was terrible for me to feel all of that. And in 2009, when I was 5 months pregnant, I picked up a knife, to attempt suicide. And so you can really see also the digression or the progression of my mental health challenges. I lost my daughter in 2008. I had 2 sons in that marriage, and it's very funny. I had once, I got pregnant and I had a miscarriage at 5 months. I had a son who had some breathing difficulties and everything. And after this son, I got pregnant. I had a daughter. The daughter died, and then I had another son. So it's like I've been pregnant in total 6 times, and I have 3 children. So it was really all hopeless. And so I decided to leave, leaving to leave. So I leave my marriage and country and my sons. I leave my sons. Very few women would do that kind of a thing, or society will lash out at you for daring to leave your marriage, first of all. Secondly, for leaving your children behind. Like, this is unheard of. So I did the two of that on the 26th of May 2011. So I leave my marriage and my country. So the same day I left my marriage, I just left my home for the airport. That means that I had planned my exit. We will call it, you have to have an escape plan. We tell women, you don't just get up and leave tomorrow because your safety is at stake. So in my case, I just decided to leave my country because I knew the man I was married to, and he has anger management issues. Let's call a spade a spade. And I mean, he could break a table with his hand and stuff like that. I laugh today, but it was so scary back then. Okay, so I knew that I just had to take myself out of here. And also mentally, I didn't want to stay in this country anymore. And I couldn't, I got so scared when I couldn't even be a mother to my own children anymore. That's how sick I was. All I wanted was food, my bed, and maybe just go out to do the minimum I can do sports. At 3 a.m., I was sick. Okay, so I landed in Belgium after 2 years in other wildernesses, other countries. All my stories are in my books. I have a total of 8 books. They're all on the Amazon. So I landed in Belgium on the 13th of January, 2013. So it actually takes me 2 years to get to the stage where I was ready to come back to my country, although I was away for 4 years. 2 years of processing all of that, and then 2 years of working on myself and working with therapists and psychiatrists and all of that. So on the 2nd of August 2015, I returned to my country, ready to face it all. So doing all it takes, I process my past. It's very important to process your past. You have to take accountability. there's no way abuse will happen and both people don't have a role, some responsibility in it. It's true that there's no reason to abuse another person, but, well, let's be honest, right? Anything can trigger and you never can tell. So even if it's 9, 90, 10 or 820 or anything, there's something, and there can be better ways of managing crisis and all of those things. So those are also things I think some other speakers will talk about. And so I work with a life coach. That was very important for me. I didn't even have money at the time. I was a student and just doing, these student jobs and stuff. But I really felt it was important. One thing I did was, before publishing my memoir, I started blogging. I had to get out of my head. And I was already having insomnia, having issues. So I just knew that getting out of my head, I was out there in Europe, so nobody is going to control me and say, no, you can write this, you cannot write that. So I started blogging, and that's how my world opened up, and I met so many people. And so I found a life coach, and I signed up, and then I published my memoirs, 7 of them, all on the Amazon. Some very interesting topics. One of them is titled, the very first one, My Unconventional Loves, My Hurts, My Adulteries, My Redemption. And then the third one, which is kind of on my domestic violence story and more, is titled Battered, Tattered, But Not Shattered, Finding the Strength in What Remains. You have to do a lot of spiritual work, hard work to get to this point. So yes, I go to see a psychiatrist, and they put me on some antidepressants and all of that. That's when I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. I connect with the world through the www, and I put in the work, review habits and commit to healthy ones, such as balanced diet, sports, sleep pattern. I mean, it's like you just break down completely, cry, shave your hair, do all of that. And then you start taking those baby steps. So the next thing is, well, there's a beautiful picture of me, the me then and the me now. And I deliberately used the one with my swimming pants, so you can see how even my legs they have flesh now. I once got down to 66, and my mother thought I was anorexic, and she cried, and she said, if you leave me like this, I'm only going to have to go and bring back a corpse. Now I weigh like 80 or so, and that's good. I mean, I've been through stuff. I once weighed 115 when I was in that marriage, and that was terrible. And that was one of the verbal abuse lines. You're as fat as a pork. And so the phonics always rises, right? And the body keeps the score. That is true. So let's remember that the mind keeps the score, the body keeps the score. It's not easy, but I can soar if I commit to trying. And I see that every day. Every day is on Saturday. Let me just tell you, Karine, because we're talking about mental health. I had not yet done this presentation. And I got up, I was thinking of coming to the office, and all of a sudden I had an anxiety attack. And it lasted for like 5 hours. I sat on the same chair. I didn't leave my room. I was so anxious. I was like, what if I don't do this before Sunday? How is Karen going to feel? Can you imagine? And there are going to be people, you had said there'll be maybe 80 participants. Those are the kind of things I was processing. I did leave the house that Saturday afternoon, but when I came to the office, I couldn't focus. So I said to myself, I'll do it on Sunday. And then Sunday, there was no electricity. But I found a way to do the presentation, and here we are. So obstacles don't scare the phonics. Ashes can serve another purpose. Hence, I rise to use those ashes to help all I can. And that is why on the 10th of December, H4AB was born. It was registered on the 10th of December. It just came to my mind at the end of October. October was, I was talking about mental health. Then I shared my own story on a Facebook Live, and I finished, and I was like, okay, God, so what next? And he said, you're going to start an organization. I was like, what's the title of this organization? And he said, take a pen and write. And I was just writing, and the focus, everything just came to mind. So yes, that's my organization, and it has 4 focus areas. That is Marie today. She has an organization. She's a lawyer. She's a psychotherapist. I had to go back to school, and she's all of that. So talking about our mental health means we are going crazy. And I'm like, no, it doesn't mean we are going crazy. I'm not going crazy. mental health challenges and disorders are caused by witchcraft or spiritual possession, and I despair that, and I say no. There's no cure for mental disorders or mental illnesses, and I say no. So that is basically what I try to do. Okay, the focus areas are the domestic violence and gender-based violence, mental health and mental illness. I have experience in all of that. Adverse childhood experiences and emotional wellness. And we are in this together. We collaborate with other organizations. Those are a few of them. Our first grant was not even up to a year after we were registered. It was from the US Embassy, and it was actually to implement a project on mental health. Excuse me. It was actually to implement a project on mental health with internally displaced people. So that is basically the kind of work we do. And yeah, we try to dispel stigma because no, victims, they didn't ask for it. I think even perpetrators, somebody is going to talk about that tomorrow. So I think that we need to talk about this. We don't need to be scared of sharing our lived experiences, be it as DV survivors or as mental health service users or persons with lived experience. And when we stigmatize, the whole economy suffers. So we really have to keep raising awareness about all of these topics which have been considered taboo. So in a nutshell, mine is a tale from hopeless to hopeful. I once wrote a poem. I'm also a poet. I have a lot of poems, and I published one collection. So I am on a mission, no matter how bleak a lot seems, especially with this other pandemic. I talk a lot of people reach out to me to talk, especially since the pandemic started. And my message at the end is always, do not suffer in silence. Do not suffer in silence. Refuse to be silenced. It's your story. And when you are ready, speak up. Whatever the reaction is, for me, it is how free I feel after sharing my story. And a lot of people reach out to me privately to say that it has helped them. And so I continue. And when you know better, you do better. And I think that this applies to both parties in a domestic violence situation. I think both parties suffer. I really think that my ex-husband has gone through his own journey. I don't know the journey, but our relationship is much better today than it was years ago. I left that marriage 10 years ago. It's very civil now. So domestic violence, mental health, it's everybody's business. I mean, everybody has a role to play. So I am on the Global Mental Health Care Network executive representing my country, and also the outgoing regional representative for Africa. We just had elections. I'm happy to hand over. So I just put that there to show people that I am going on. I'm not stopping, using all platforms available to share my story. As I conclude, I am alive to tell it all and do much more. So I am not that PTSD diagnosis. I am also a World Pulse ambassador. World Pulse is a platform for women. We have like over 90 countries represented. I'm an ambassador. I'm a featured change maker. I'm all over the place, and I have no regrets with that. Okay, well, so you can contact me. I put my contacts there. I'm open for collaborations, participations, and everything. And a big thank you, Karin. Big thank you, everyone. There is hope. Thank you.